What's happening, YouTube friends? I am gonna be working on this 21 GMC Terrain, doing it for the dealer. It's gonna get 20 in the express window films, classic black, kind of match the fronts to the rears. Trying something a little different today. A good friend of mine apparently wanted to see if I do all right with this YouTube channel stuff and bought me a new GoPro Hero 9. Thank you, Travis. He's running a page called Southwest Custom Auto. Maybe he just didn't want me to be borrowing his GoPro forever so that he could do his videos. But for now, we're gonna see. Hopefully I can figure this out. I'm not exactly the most tech savvy person on earth, but I don't know, we'll see. You'll probably see in my other videos where I forget to hit record. So newer Terrain. Again, I will probably end up using the patterns for the plotter on this one. I am using Lumar's core software. I do know from previous Terrains, the pattern is just a little bit shorter on the sides than I would like, but it's workable. You just gotta be real cautious with how you line things up. Other than that, pretty straightforward vehicle. Let's see, kind of a quiet day today. Actually, my 2 8 o'clock appointments didn't show up and my helper didn't show up, so I'm just kind of working alone, and not an awful thing. Roll these windows down, makes it a little easier to pull the sweeps out. Come here, get logged in. If you've never used the plotter before, it can be kind of helpful. Just another tool in the box, especially when the patterns fit. Sometimes cause you frustration, patterns won't fit, and then you gotta go cut them by hand and throw away the film that didn't fit. But like I said, pretty familiar with these ones, and they work pretty good enough. Let's see, what do we got? Terrain. And so I've been using the plotter now probably at least 10 years. Been through Precision Cut 3, 4, and this core software. I don't think I used Precision Cut 2 unless it was like right when I started, but I think some things are getting a little bit better. There's a few things I don't love about this software, or maybe I just haven't figured it out yet. Unfortunately, figuring things out sometimes requires a call to tech support, and a lot of times I don't have a lot of time to call tech support. So anyways, you can see plotter kind of doing its thing. Now on a previous video, and I'll probably make a little video on how I like to weed a lot of my patterns. The Lumar films, I kind of have a way to sort of tear the liner, and it works really well. The express window films, most of the time it's kind of hit and miss if I'm gonna be able to tear the liner. So I pretty much just assume I'm not going to be able to, and what I like to do is I'll trim it real close here, right by where we cut. That kind of doesn't leave too much hanging over on the vehicle for shrinking and whatnot. But so I'll just pull a little bit. So this is one of my frustrations with the core software that I didn't really have with the Precision Cut 4 that you wouldn't think the software would affect, but like I said, I just never had this issue before. And I think what it comes down to is I have yet to find a setting that is cut on pole only. If you know the core software and you know where I can find a setting for that, let me know in the comments. That would be amazing. But what I think kind of happens is when it's not on cut on pole, it kind of bunches up the film when it's trying to cut on the push. And let's see, I think I did something stupid while I'm talking here. Tries to cut on the push and bunches up the film, and then just doesn't cut as smooth as we would like. Let's see. Did we do something stupid here? Yeah, we're gonna make another one. Keep that as a backup. Let's see. We need a, what is that? That's a left. We need a left. Delete that out. Turn this around. This is one of the things that I really like about the plotters. If you screw up, it doesn't take too much longer to make a second pattern, where if I was hand cutting and I screwed up, just gotta start all over again. I don't know if you can see on that other pattern, but while I was talking, I sort of cut into my pattern a little bit, and that'll leave a little dip at the top, and prefer to not have that, especially on a driver door. Sometimes you can get away with little imperfections as long as it's not on the driver door. When it's on the driver door, the poor driver has to see it every time they look at their window. So I always try to make sure that that window looks super good. Let's see. So like I said, on the express window films, I'll just cut it real close and then pull the excess out. Lumar, maybe I'll make a little short for it or something, but I have a nice little process for tearing it. On these, kind of like on my Colorado video, there's gonna be a couple screws behind the handle here, and you'll see, I think these are T20s. Oh no, there's 7. So we got a 7 behind the handle. We should be able to remove that 7, pop the top back. I do believe these have just some little clips along the top, same as the Canyon Colorado 14 to 19 GM trucks. And so those, super easy to take apart. Let's see. So 7mm. We're gonna go ahead and take that out. These things are pretty nice looking, these trains. Oddly enough, I'm not the biggest GM fan, but I'd rock it. I got a couple friends that are here. They're always driving fancy cars. They were looking at one of these. They're like, hey, that's not a half bad looking vehicle. All right, so let's see. I'm pretty sure there's clips here. Yep, just the same as on my Canyon video. We've got just some clips along the top. Now, there is a clip at the back here that you do not want to pop out. It's not your ordinary door panel clip. So try to not pull that backside too much. Otherwise, I think for the most part that clip almost breaks, and then it's no good. Probably one of those things nobody but you will know, but if you can avoid it, avoid it. So we're just gonna pull this out from the front so that we're not prying on the back too much. Pops right out nice and easy. go do the other side real quick. And again, just find that first clip. That'll kind of loosen things up. Number 2. Number 3. 4. And 5. And so the front has just a normal door panel clip, so you can actually pop that open pretty wide and be okay. These little clips, they don't really pull out as much on these as some of the other vehicles, but still kind of be careful not to pull them up with your molding, because what they like to do is drop down into the door and then you got to go hunting for them. That's never any fun. Let's get these windows up. We'll clean them. Said it on previous videos, you don't have to clean the outside of the windows, but I think it saves you some headache if there's any like bigger pieces of dirt or whatever. They sometimes will push through the tint when you're trying to hard card the tint to get your fingers out. This one, so like you saw, I kind of messed up cutting one of my patterns, and I turned the pattern around on the plotter. So with that comes something I have to keep in my mind. The film only shrinks side to side on the roll. So one of these patterns, I'm gonna be cutting it or shrinking it up and down. And one of these patterns, I'm gonna be shrinking side to side. If you don't take that into consideration, you try to shrink the tint the wrong direction, well, you're not gonna have much luck shrinking it. So keep that in mind. When I was working with another person, I would draw arrows on it, or if it's a vehicle where I have like multiple windows I have to keep in my head, I go ahead and just draw some arrows with a Sharpie on the liner here, and just kind of helps me keep track what direction we're going. My bottle's almost empty, so apologize. You're gonna have to watch me fill up a bottle of water. That's not the most exciting thing to watch. I'd rather be, well, there might be enough in here. Maybe we'll do one window, see how it goes. Let's see. So anyways, this is kind of a new channel for me, a new something for me. Been doing this a very long time, and figure introduce a little something new to my day, maybe make it not quite so boring, maybe help out a few friends out in the tint world. I know our community's kind of getting a little bit smaller, and I'll tell you what, tinting has been a great career for me. Made a good life, made some good money, met a lot of people, and no real complaints other than I've been doing this since I was 17, and I would like to maybe get out in the world and see something else. So shrinking, probably a billion videos on this, but essentially what I do, pull the film out to the sides and then down. That leaves us our excess film to wherever we want to shrink. In this case, this one was cut long ways on the roll, so it's going to shrink top to bottom. So we put all our fingers on the bottom, and the film will make these nice little S's, and you can shrink it. Pretty simple, pretty basic there. This is called a wet shrink. Side windows, they don't require a whole lot. There's not a lot of film that's needing to be shrunk. I do have a video on an Impreza if you want to see what a dry shrink looks like. I kind of show what it looks like doing a dry shrink, which is something that's used more on like back windows and windshields, things that are very, very curved. So different than that window, since I had to cut a second one and I didn't want to waste a bunch of film. I cut this one sideways on the roll. So because I cut that one sideways on the roll, I have to shrink it sideways on the vehicle. So same thing, you'll see our little S's kind of pop up, and we're shrinking. So instead of pushing it all out to the side and down, push it all out to the side here, push it all out to the side here, and that leaves us our excess film on this one side. I mean, in theory, you could make fingers on the front, shrink the front too, but since there's so little shrinking, not really that necessary. All right, so I think, oh look, they got a little bit of bump on their car. Hopefully they don't try to blame me for that. Maybe it's a used car. No, 21. Sometimes it's fun. People like to try to blame you for damages for their vehicle that you most certainly did not do, but they didn't notice until you touched it. And or mechanical failures, things like that. They call them the ever since people. Ever since you touched my car, something happened. Yeah, I think we're gonna make some water. Let me just clean up this board real quick. It's been sitting over the weekend, and sometimes there's just dirt and dust floating around in the air. Try to clean off that weekend dust. So I use these tanks. They're called Cornelius tanks. That may have been a bit noisy, but if you tint a lot, it comes in handy. You can mix up. I usually mix about 2.5, 3 gallons at a time. That allows me to sort of make like a larger batch, and my film stays a lot more consistent. This is my dungeon. Nobody really goes in here except me to fill up water, and my coworker use the restroom. So I'll usually fill up the tank. It's a 5-gallon tank if I remember right. I'll usually fill it up about halfway, a little more than halfway. I tint with Johnson's baby shampoo. It's fairly mild for the adhesives on the film and hasn't really ever given me too much issue. Let's see, a good kind of starting place, usually about 1 ounce to 1 gallon. I run a little bit extra, partially because sometimes the soap likes to fall to the bottom before it's completely dissolved, and by the time you start getting like halfway through your solution, it runs out of soap. So run a little bit extra. One of the things, it's always pushing towards the tip of the sprayer. And so one thing I found, if you just leave it there, right now that soap is gonna be sitting down at the bottom of the bottle here. So what I do, I put it on the side, because as you're pressurizing it, the pickup for the water is also in the bottom. And what ends up happening is it pushes all of your soap out in like the first half gallon that you're using. So if you kind of just put the tank on the side here, seems to sort of help keep your mixture a little bit more consistent, and you don't push out all the soap right away. Come on. Usually just kind of go until that gets quiet. So, sorry you had to watch that, but sometimes you gotta make soap. And the last thing we're gonna do before we get on this, so one thing nice about these sprayers and the corny tank is they have these little filters and they catch grime and gunk and all kinds of nasty stuff might end up in your tint. I'm sorry? Which one is the modem and what is the CM back? The modem. All right, sorry. Little interruption there. I don't know if we're gonna cut that out or not. See my super secret lifestyle. That was my wife, by the way. She's my beautiful wife. Been together a very long time. Be 25 years next year. She's the one who tricked me into getting into this business. Let's see. All right. So back to what we're doing. Got to pull the stickers off. Now, one of my biggest annoyances on these GMs is it seems like they only want to be on about 3 minutes and then they shut themselves off, which means turn the car on, do a little work, turn the car on, do a little work. But if you're fast enough, then not so much work. Seen in my previous videos, I usually keep a towel around, wiping off the plastic. Got a card for cleaning out the edges, white scrubby pad, and yellow turbo. It's about all you'll ever see me use on door windows. Let's go in here. Okay, we're good. First thing first, we're gonna clean up the adhesive. And let's shake this. It's a little soapy. Shake, shake, shake. All right, so do our first spray. We're gonna kind of give it a little scrub. Just break up any oils, maybe if there's any things on the glass, kind of help knock them loose. I like to come in here and really get, a lot of times you'll see some like crud just sort of baked to the glass, either oily dirt, maybe it's sort of the rubber from the weather strip. Something will be caked up in there, but yeah, see, this is really clean. You always want to wipe that top off. If for any reason, it kind of gives you an indication of how dirty the vehicle is. If that top comes back with a lot of dirt, then you know you're in for some fun. Nothing really there. I mean, this is a new car, so I wouldn't expect it to have a lot of dirt, but one of the things I've been experiencing, not so much now, I think now, kind of middle of 2021, all the dealers are so short on cars that they're selling as soon as they hit the lot. But previously, where I live, most of the cars come here by train, and there's like drop sort of depots out in the middle of nowhere. Usually just sit out there for a while waiting for a truck to bring them to town, and they'll just have a ton of sand in them sitting out in the desert waiting to get picked up. And so you think to yourself, oh, it's a nice new car, everything's gonna be clean, and guess what, there's sand falling out of everywhere. So away and down, pushing the dirt, little spritz on the top, and then we're just gonna push everything down, try to get it out of where the tint's gonna go. Like I said at the beginning of the video, these patterns are very close fitting, so I'm gonna have to have it almost exact on the front, and that should give us enough to where we don't have a gap on the back. Hopefully not too much has changed about that, but if we do it right, it will be very exact. No gaps. So we're just gonna feed this front in and then drop this back in. Slide this to the back, and like I said, on this front here, we're gonna put it, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but we're gonna put this exactly on the front. We'll go around and check just to make sure, but if you leave it to where there's maybe just like a little hairline of a gap right here, when you roll it up, you won't see anything, and nobody's ever gonna see anything when it's down. Let's see, we got no gap there. A little more than I'd like, so we're just gonna kind of shift this to the front just a tiny bit, like Bob Ross, happy little push. So again, check it, no gaps. I like this bright green card, you can really see what's going on, but see, a little bit of a gap here, no gap here, and I think that'll be where we want to be. Check it afterwards. That'll let us know what we need to do for the driver door. The driver door, like I said, you always want the driver door to be the best door, so I usually like to start on the passenger side, and I mean, obviously I want everything to look as good as I can make it look, but that doesn't mean I can't make one look a little bit better than the other. See, look, car already shut off. And we're what, halfway through the door window? Now, I haven't tried it on these cars, but on the trucks, the Chevy pickup trucks with a push button start, if you put it in gear, put it in drive, obviously make sure your parking brake is set. You don't want it maybe rolling away on you or something, but if you put it in drive and turn the car on, it will not shut off on you. I found that out on accident one day. I forgot to put it in park and I shut the car off. And I was like, hey, I gotta tint this whole car without it shutting off on me. And then I realized it wouldn't start because I was still in drive. But, you know, sometimes you're busy, you're not thinking, and you discover things. And so heat the top a little bit, that'll get our tint to stick. You can see it's not wiggling around on us. We're gonna turn this on and just kind of walk it up here, and let's see what that's gonna look like. I don't think we'll have any gaps. There's almost nothing there. Nobody's ever gonna see that one, and nobody's ever gonna see that one. So we're perfect. It's like only if you look into it from a deep angle can you see that the film's a little bit short, and nobody's ever gonna look at it at that angle. All right, so squeegee everything away and down. Usually try to give it nice firm push the first time and an extra firm push after everything's in place. I really feel a firm push helps the like any dirt or contamination kind of come out with the water. I think it sort of, if you go over it soft, sort of a, weak hand, I think it just locks down anything that's in the tint, where if you push it really hard, I think it kind of picks it up with the water, pushes it out. And so we should be good. Just go kind of give things a little look over. And do the driver door. So all the way down, make sure we kind of get the water out of the sides here. Because you can't get your squeegee into these sides, they like to hold a lot of water, and then when it dries, it actually leaves some air that was in that water behind. And then air is hard to get out of tint after the tint's dried. All right, so we're just gonna give it a quick little peek, make sure if there's anything we need to touch up, we kind of have a head start on it. And really, got a tiny little thing right there, and these probably won't even show up on video. Tiny little thing right there, and that's it. Not too shabby. So let's get the other side done. Basically the same process. Might end up going fast forward on this part. Not a whole lot to see that's different from the other side. And I imagine by now there's a good chance that this isn't the most interesting thing you've watched, unless you're trying to tint your own vehicle or just like watching people do things. I find myself in that trap. I like watching people just do whatever they do. I'm going to school right now for CDL truck driving, and just watching people drive their trucks and do whatever they're doing. A lot of car audio stuff. I'm a big hobby car audio. I actually, with my company, did about 8 years, about 2013 till this year. I was offering it, do car audio, alarms. Hate alarms though, don't like going under the hood. And remote starts. I actually really liked remote starts, so I think maybe in later years. Remote starts are fantastic to install unless they give you a hard time. If they gave you a hard time, there's a very good chance that you weren't following instructions, and then you have to backtrack everything you did on that install and find out where you weren't following instructions. Then sometimes it's programming, sometimes it's wiring, sometimes it's like model variations and you overlook something. There's a lot. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing on those, especially newer vehicles. A lot of stuff's just data information. Everything has to be very exact to be communicating properly. And so it's not just twisting wires together anymore. It's getting computers to talk to each other, body control module, the brain for the starter, and a mobilizer bypass, engine control module. Everything sort of has to be in agreement. And so a lot of information out there, but it's kind of one of those things that it does take some learning to do. All right, so again, slip the nose down in here, drop the back in, drop the corner in, shift it to the back, and we're gonna put this right about as exact as we can put it. This one seems like it has a little bit more film to it than the other one. It's always funny to me on some of these cars. They, left and right doors are exactly the same, but on the computer software, left and right doors isn't exactly the same. I've had some vehicles where one door is a 1/4 inch, the pattern is a 1/4 inch larger than the other door, vice versa. So I think we should just bump it back just the world's smallest bit right there. Let's see what happens. So I don't know, what do you think about these videos? Are they boring? Should I speed them up? Should I slow them down? Should I try to break them up, maybe into individual patterns or processes? My goal really when starting this channel was I wanted to kind of show how I do things start to finish for all the different vehicles. Tend to do things maybe a little different than some other tinners. And so it kind of gives some perspective on what's worked for me for quite a while. And you can kind of see how I start on a vehicle, if I take things apart, how I take things apart, if I don't take things apart, how I don't take things apart, you know. Some vehicles, you'll see a GMC Canyon video that I hand cut the patterns. You can kind of see my process for hand cutting the patterns, processes for shrinking. And the big one just sort of like disassembly videos, you know. I tend to make things as easy as I can for myself, which means I'll disassemble as much as I can within reason. I don't necessarily want to chance breaking things, but if I can drop a full tin of full pattern of tint down into the door and not have to deal with trying to tuck it in a sweep or trying to not have creases on the sides, things like that, seems to give a little more leeway on pushing any contamination out to the sides, things like that, then try to drop a full pattern down in the door. There's a few vehicles that everything's really loose or extremely difficult to take apart and doesn't give you too much extra help by taking it apart. So those ones we'll try to tuck them in. But a lot of these Volkswagens, GMs, Chryslers, Hondas, a lot of the Hondas, Subaru and Toyota, I'd say those are the ones that off the top of my head almost always pull apart. Let's see, so squeegee this out, and then I think we're gonna let it dry a little bit before I put the seeps back in. So I'll catch you in a little while. We'll put it out in the sun, but we're about done here. All right, we're back. 2021 terrain, back in from just sitting outside drying. I'm gonna run through and kind of do a little bit of touch up on things. I mean, it's almost inevitable that you're gonna have a little bit of something in your tint. What takes it from an okay, decent tint job to a really good tint job is if you can conceal those things. So I don't know if you can see, we have a couple little microscopic whatevers along the top here, and this is stuff that most people probably wouldn't notice. Like, I doubt most people would complain about it, but it's there. I see it, and I know it can be touched up and made to look just a little bit less noticeable. So we're gonna go ahead and touch these up. I do most of my touching up with the chiseler here. I like it. It doesn't really scratch the glass. It has like a nice sharp edge on it. Sometimes I'll use this. This is called the Gator Blade, especially if I need to like get into a corner. And then my green corner card here, if I need to get like deep into somewhere. And really, you don't want to touch the tint too much with these tools. If you're going a little too crazy with it, you will scratch either the area that you're touching up in. If you overextend the area, you might end up with a much larger scratch. And so really want to be very, very precise, very direct in how you're addressing things. But it is amazing, especially some films more than others, exactly how much you can conceal. And like I said, that's just kind of, let's say you do a pretty nice tint job, a 7 out of 10, you can go and just kind of touch things up a little bit and turn that 7 into maybe like a 9.5 out of 10, at least in the eyes of the customer or the person that's getting the tint job. And so I always try to plan a little bit of drying time and touch-up time into my tint jobs, because inevitably, if you send them out wet, that water's gonna conceal quite a bit of stuff. You know, the water sort of fills in all the gaps. Once that water dries out, then anything that's between the tint and the glass becomes very, very visible. And so I always like to kind of come through and just give little, plus sometimes there's things you won't, there's been a million times where I put it outside, and then when I go and give it a second look over, all of a sudden there's an inch-long hair in the middle of the tint. It's like, where the heck did that come from? Never know. It's a mystery. Floating around in the air. Maybe came off my shirt. Maybe a piece of like the fiber from a microfiber towel. Never quite sure where those come from sometimes, but it'll just be there, and you got enough time, go ahead and fix it. I mean, it takes a lot less time to fix it now while it's in your shop than somebody calling and complaining and you having to bring him in and get it fixed. So like I said before, there's a clip right here. You don't want to pull this backside out too much on these terrains, so just kind of slip this in from the front. You can give it a nice little bend, drop it down in there, and once it's fully seated, just a little push, all your clips across the top are good. We'll put our 7mm back in and should be ready to go. Somebody's got their slick, brand new GMC Terrain. I like this black and white sort of stormtrooper color scheme. Pretty popular on a lot of vehicles nowadays. I don't know how much you people watching this have seen in cars, but Nissan had actually come out with a Nissan Rogue. I think it was about a 2014, 2015 Nissan Rogue, and it was actually like a Storm Trooper Star Wars edition, and it was kind of like this vehicle. It had black wheels and black trim. and it came with the, I think it was the Empire logo on it or something. Kind of cool. Don't see them very often. I thought it was somebody's sort of like customization the first time I saw one, and then I saw a couple more, and it's like, hey, that's factory. So again, I don't like to use towels that I don't know where they've been on the inside of the glass, so I'll usually pull a fresh microfiber when I'm cleaning the insides of the windows, only because, you know, it's been sitting on my table, or I clean the outside of a car and a little rock got on the inside here or something, just kind of embedded in the fibers. Some of these have twigs or just something that I picked up from somewhere, and go to clean the inside of the glass, put one nice scratch, and guess what? You're doing it all over again. I'm gonna flip this over and clean the other side. Let's see. And take us a little picture for a thumbnail, because that's one thing I realized on my first videos is I didn't have a picture of what it looks like done. So you can see this is Express Window Films 20 black, 20 classic black. Really nice looking film, really good match. It does run a bit dark, so trying to match up to the lighter privacy glass like on a Honda or something, not the greatest match. But on these GMs, Chryslers, anything that has sort of a dark privacy glass, not a terrible match. Here, let's meter it since we're here. Window lock's on. It's always on when you don't want it to be on. All right, let's see what this looks like. I know, wasting time. I got a slow day today. Like I said before, my 8 o'clocks didn't show up, my helper didn't show up, my phones weren't working. Everything's just kind of taking its time today. So we've got a 23 on the rear privacy. Fronts are gonna meter a little bit darker than that, but I already know the Express runs a little dark. Some of these domestic vehicles meter down at like 18, even some of them down to like 14 and 11. So we got about 17, 5-6% difference. Most people aren't gonna know, only because the windshield lets in so much light that it actually makes the front doors look lighter. So if you're a tiny bit darker on the front, it kind of helps with that sort of visual match from the outside. And on the inside, it's such a small difference that you never know on the inside. So that's it. 2021 GMC Terrain, tinted the 2 front doors, Express 20 classic black. I appreciate you watching. Thank you.